Explain the parable. Peter answered him, Explain the parable to us. Matthew 15:15, Western English Bible. I will discuss the 15th verse from the aforementioned chapter. Peter answered him, Explain the parable to us. I take one verse, whose content is unknown, because Christ said many things, and what ought to be interpreted is not written in the Gospels. The parable that it refers to is not there. What is the parable? In that sense, the mathematicians have a say in this matter. They constantly deal with unknown things in the world. That is, they reveal secrets. Give a mathematician the most puzzling things, and when he sits down to work on them for 4 or 5 minutes, he'll always uncover something from these numbers. Peter answered him, Explain the parable to us. I will ask you, what is the most important parable that interests you right now? If I ask a young woman what the most important parable is, she will say, The most important parable is who can love me in the future. Something unknown. If you ask the young man, he will also say the same. If you ask the mother, she will say, The child that is going to be born, will it be a male or female? If you ask a professor, he will say, The most important parable is what position I will take. If you ask a doctor, he will say whether he'll be well known, whether he'll gain a little money. If you ask a priest, he will also tell you that he will either be a priest or a bishop or some patriarch. So, it turns out that every person has one parable in the world that he's trying to solve. And everyone solves it, both men and women. And those of you who listen to me each have one parable. I will examine only one, but there are still many others. The most important parable in life is life itself, how life originated. How did it arise? How did it develop? What were its original states? How did it manifest in the beginning? Who are the father and mother of this life? You will say, The Lord. But the Lord is only an idea. It's not a specific idea. So you ask yourself a question. You inquire in some way what your situation will be. If you are a young soldier preparing for war, you will say, What does the future hold for me? You will take out your sabers, your guns, and your horses to examine them. And according to that, you will begin to see how to attack your enemy, whether you will succeed or not. These are the numbers you work with. For instance, if I tell you the numbers 502, 516, 869, 634, 739, 604, what do you understand? You will say, This is an entertaining thing that children often do in schools. They write these numbers. When you go to a cemetery and dig up the bones of some dead person, count them all to see how many there are. Some find that there are about 280 bones in a person's corpse. Do you think these bones represent man? No, they are a part of man. The muscles, the stomach, the lungs, the functions that are embedded in them are not there. You only have bones. You can tell from the bones, especially from the skull, what kind of man he was, whether he was a man or a woman, whether he was a scholar or a simpleton, whether he was honest or liked to drink, whether he was patient or not. You can tell everything by looking at his head. When you stick a candle inside, it will show you everything. In this way, you can describe the whole life of someone who has been gone for thousands of years, and you can guess the kind of death he died from. If it was a woman, you will know if she lived an honest life with her husband, or if she liked to go to women's gatherings. If it was the man, if you like to go to cafes and discuss politics. In the future, your head will say all this. All your secrets, whatever they might be, will then be revealed, because then you will learn the law of silence. And when they praise you or accuse you, you will remain silent. So, it's not important what people think of us now, but what people will think of us in the future by looking at our heads. If you follow this profound science deep enough, you'll understand that the cells you're thinking about, the ones you think are rotting away, actually don't rot. They are never lost. No. Some become part of the structure of plants. Others enter the structure of minerals. A different kind enter into the structure of water. And a fourth kind become part of the structure of animals. And sometimes it's possible, after having eaten an apple that grew by some graveyard, that you actually tore off pieces of fat from a great man in the grave. And you might experience a slight malaise after eating this apple. How would you explain this fact? You wash the apple with warm water, but afterwards you feel malaise in your spirit. You say, "This food is impairing my stomach." I say, you swallowed some of the dissolved salts from this philosopher, and you can never even guess what kind of person he was. We modern-day people suffer from the thoughts of our ancestors. These thoughts aren't in the air. These thoughts are materialized in the organic world. And some of these cells have turned into parasites, into germs. We have about 16,000 germs, some of which have not yet been researched. Such are the germs that come from tuberculosis, from typhoid fever, from the plague, among other things. These are always thoughts from such philosophers who followed the path of the Black Brotherhood. Do not think that evil people can disappear. Evil cannot disappear by itself. No. Evil continues on, ceaselessly, in all its manifestations. Goodness also continues ceaselessly in all its manifestations. Someone says, "We should destroy this evil." No, you're not thinking about this matter correctly. Evil cannot be destroyed. The majority of modern people who don't deal with psychological laws or the laws of nature don't understand what evil is as a force, not as a manifestation. Have you studied what evil is as an aspiration, evil as a feeling, evil as a force in the world? Here you are lashing out at the devil and saying, "That wretched devil, how did he appear in the world? He ruined everything." Why should he be wretched? Do you know why they call him wretched? Because he gives advice to the people, but he himself doesn't work. Like some bankers, he gives money at interest, but he himself doesn't work. He gives it at 5, 10, or 1,000% interest. I can tell you that the devil is even capable of shaving a child. Some say, "What is the devil?" A banker of the highest quality, the kind the world has never seen. He's the great teacher in all the modern-day banks. What's so bad about these banks? They provide a service in the world, don't they? They collect interest, but they also make this wheel go round. Sometimes this banker is capable of ripping you off, but sometimes he could also help you. But this doesn't mean anything. And so, those who have entered the new path in life need to let go of this old belief, saying that the devil is bad, but we're good. We have to study these forces so we can see which ones are in harmony with us and which ones are in disharmony. Now, you need to strain your minds a little more. That is, you shouldn't worry. Contemporary people say that man gets ruined by too many thoughts. Rest assured that man has neither gone mad nor turn bad from a lot of learning or thinking. I haven't found this in all my research. No, this stems from some unusual experiences. If the person is like Don Quixote, there will be madness. If he's like Sancho Panza, he can heal himself of his madness. Don Quixote is a man whose personal inner feelings have taken over, and he thinks that there is no one else like him, and that he knows everything, whether it be religion and science, or society and politics. The world is filled with nothing but Don Quixotes and Sancho Panzas. You will say that my thought is a little strange. No, if this were not so, the world ought to be all right. This Don Quixote is everywhere. He is a noble man, a believer. I don't interpret Don Quixote in a bad way. This is a misunderstanding in the world. This means having Don Quixote's ideas. And Sancho Panza is the man who expects his position from Don Quixote, hoping that Don Quixote will come around. Sancho Panza is the man of extreme trust, ready to go everywhere as long as he can also save himself. Now my answer to all these people is that this is a deceptive notion. There's salvation in the world only through a great power. This is the power that brought everything into the world. If you tap into it, everything in this power becomes wise. All action, all thought, all desire, all of it oxidizes and it attains greater wisdom. When it comes into your soul, it will produce a certain effect. I told you in another lecture that not only love, but also every noble thought, every noble feeling and action that takes precedence in you creates a slight differentiation. And if they were to measure the angle, they would find this difference. Measure only your hand or your neck, and if you have one noble thought, for instance, there will usually be a difference from the state when your mind was passive. If your mind is not passive, this state will usually not occur. Take measurements so you can see whether there is a great expansion when the strong thought or strong feeling occurs. What do you think? Will the nose expand more when you have a strong thought or a strong feeling? There will be greater extension and tightening of the nose when a strong thought occurs. And during a strong feeling, there will be an expansion and a shortening of the nose. Now, you might object to me and say, why would we care whether the nose expands or shortens? This ought to be of interest to you. Just like the machinist who measures the atmospheric pressure of the vapors behind the wheels. Otherwise, the boiler would burst. The real science is precisely behind these things, and if you know the laws, you would be able to change the outcome. Knowing that your nose expands, and this expansion creates an unpleasant feeling, then you'll have to extend your nose and intensify your thoughts. If there is a danger in extending your nose, then you'll have to expand it. You'll make a psychological transformation in your life. If you thought like this, you would have been able to avert many misfortunes in your lives. Suppose a mother is dissatisfied with her children and feels extremely irritated. Her nose expands. How would you proceed according to the old method? You take a stick and whack, whack, whack. You give the child a whack. And you see those children rubbing their eyes. If her nose expands too widely, they would say the mother resolves her issue very incorrectly. If it extends downward, they would say the child speaks a very correct mathematical language. Have you observed how your children cry? Then why do you get married? Why do you become a father? Just so you can give birth to children? Even the fish give birth like this. And now, all of you pass for philosophers, thinking you know a lot, and you pretentiously believe you're going to heaven. But do you know that when you go to heaven, the first thing they'll ask you is how your children cried, how they wiped their eyes and tears away? You will say, I don't know this. You'll return back to earth again so you can learn this. And this means you have to correct two important mistakes, which is to say, the mind has not been taught to think correctly, and secondly, the other law, that you haven't learned to feel according to the law of your heart. Peter answered him, Explain the parable to us. What parable? The parable of life. Why do we have these contradictions in the world? Why don't the people accept this teaching when you preach it to them? Why do we have these misunderstandings in the world? And Christ answered Peter, All these contradictions in the world exist because the noses of the people do not extend, but they expand and become wider. What does Apostle Peter say? That we see people with very long noses. Yes, when some artist paints a person in a book, he can give him a long nose. He can also give him a short one. That doesn't mean anything. Only the living nose is important. Consequently, the nose must constantly change. It shouldn't become bigger. Why do people's noses sometimes turn crooked, going to one side or another? Why? Notice how a pig's snout is turned upwards. Why? Because he likes to dig and scoop up, to unearth. This desire to constantly scoop upwards forms a concave ellipse. And those who dig, who unearth, always say this. So the pig is a master at digging. But there are birds who have the desire to snatch something, and their nose is turned downwards. I don't want you to draw your own conclusions now, but I'm telling you that an extremely bad trait will always be reflected in your nose, in its width and length. This will not only leave its mark on the nose, but all your thoughts and feelings will also be affected. Every person who looks at your thoughts will know the kind of mind and heart they were born into. Know that every thought that came out of you has its effect on your mind. The thoughts of Ivana, of Stoyana, of some banker are written. When Christ says that there is nothing in the world that can be hidden, this is true. One day, when you enter the spiritual world, you'll say to yourselves, What are we going to do? You'll study your thoughts from thousands of generations, seeing how you lived. And after you study both sides of your life, the good as well as the bad, and find all the causes, then you'll be brought back down to earth. Now some people preach an easy doctrine, to have Christ come and wipe away all your sins. Like a young woman, you want some prince or count to be found who can dress her, to create a comfortable life for her, and take her out for walks in the park. These are the ideas of the contemporary world, an opulent life. This doesn't solve the issue. In the future, you'll create an even worse condition for yourselves, because every single life in which we live has good conditions, but we actually make it worse from life to life. Every day we think only about ourselves. You say, This is how it's going to be today, and tomorrow or some other time we'll do something good. No, you must do good every day. There's a program according to which it is determined for how many people you must do something good today to show empathy. If you don't do this, some unusual gaps will appear in your life. If you help these people, they will help you in the future. If you don't help them, they will stumble you. This law is not only true for each person, but for every society, for every nation. In every home, there is a common soul that includes the individuals. A nation also has a common soul. A race also has a common soul. Even the entirety of mankind has a soul, and everyone in each separate person. These souls are grouped together. Now, if you tell this to people in the modern day world, they'll say, "These are empty things." Every person who doesn't know how to count sees these as empty things. I would like one person to come with whom we have the same feelings and to draw something together from nature. If we are right in all our thoughts, our actions will definitely be right. If our religious conceptions and beliefs were correct, not only relatively, but also absolutely correct, because there is one great law in nature, according to which there are no exceptions, then our actions would be correct as well. The man who is correct only in the present. Man can only be correct in the present. If he is correct in the present, he will be correct in the future, and vice versa. If we uphold the other philosophy, then it is an uneven foundation. Then what do modern scientific people resemble? A Hindu father gives his son an apple seed and says, "Son, I want you to tell me what is in this apple seed." The young son takes it and puts it in a pot and boils it. "There's nothing." "What came out?" "Nothing. I boiled it. Nothing came out." The father called his second son and said to him, "You take this apple seed. See what it is." He takes it, cracks it open, eats it, and finally says, "It's a little bitter, but it's nothing too special." He calls the third son and gives him the seed too. He plants it. So, when we give the seed to modern people, they put it in a pot and boil it. Other philosophers eat it, and no one bothers to plant it. The son who planted the seed understood the power that it holds within. The seed is the tree. Consequently, every thought must grow and give its fruit. How will you recognize the power of a noble thought? According to what Christ said, to love your enemy. For instance, you have the thought of killing someone. You're ready to do this. But once this divine love comes into you, you'll immediately polarize. If you kill this person, you won't conquer him. Killing doesn't solve the issue. If you open a glass jar of poisonous gas, how would that serve you? This poisonous gas should have been compressed and then filtered through. Evil needs to be compressed. It doesn't need to expand. Consequently, all the European nations now find themselves in a position where they can only destroy. They don't apply Christ's teaching. They apply the teachings of many old beliefs from the past. The war is an old belief. The idols are an old belief. This is an old culture that appears in new forms. You say, "We can fight in a modern way. We're cultured people." In America, they use electricity to kill. In France, they cut people's heads off. Those of you who have an interest in life itself must solve the issue for yourselves. What is this parable, and what is the main task the parable is trying to achieve? Life. Where is the source of life? From where does it flow? You will say, from love. But are you connected with the kind of love from which life flows? I'm talking about a very particular kind of love. The love that gave birth to life did so a long time ago, and now it is no longer being born. If all the grains of wheat were destroyed, there wouldn't be any more left. The cells we now have in our organism aren't being born right now. They were born millions of years ago, and if they were destroyed, they could not be born a second time. Everything requires specific conditions, which we can't create ourselves. Consequently, for every thought, for every desire, there is a specific time, a specific combination of things. There is also a specific time for love. The women say, "One can always love." No, there can be a tickling of sensations. But love, the kind of love that can transform every instinct within a person, so he's not a wolf, so he's not a tiger, so he's not a duck. The love that tickles the person's sensations is not love. This is a manifestation of man's distorted life that we see right now. Now, I am suggesting a philosophical thought to you. Some of you say, "Tell us a secret." I say, I can show you secrets, but I will only show you the door, and you will find the way. The Bulgarians say, "Only show him the door, and he will find the barn." Whoever cannot find the barn is not worthy. And so, think about this extension and expansion of the nose. When does the human nose extend? When the person starts thinking correctly. I'm only referring to the two dimensions of the human nose, length and width, and not about depth. If you properly unite with the great law, which operates the right way, your nose will have that extension, which shows that you are connected with the divine harmony, which is in agreement with all the stars, with all matter. If your nose expands correctly, this shows that you are connected with all the beings of love, and you're not the kind of person who could cause mischief to anyone. How difficult this philosophical thought is. When you listen to me, you say to yourselves, "We really bungled ourselves now." One must get bungled. Look at the trees. See how they bungled themselves down. Sometimes the roots are buried up to 10 meters beneath. This is their head, and what a head! Yes, one must bury himself in all the unpleasant things. When there are many sufferings, I say, the head is buried. And when the troubles seize, I say, the head is poisoned. When you have many troubles, you say, my head is buried. In order for these forces to manifest in us, we have to bury ourselves in matter, because real life begins with the burial of matter. A spiritual life doesn't exist outside of this. Modern people don't understand what spiritual life is. They say, the spiritual life is something like the air, like the wind. Yes, there is only wind on earth, but there is no wind in the spiritual world. Do you know why the winds form? It happens because stupid people have many gaps. The wind appears, the trees wrap around and say, the stupid people reign. When stillness ensues, the smart people reign. Once there is wind, the stupid people reign. Everything could happen amongst them. Such people have their carts turn over, like Nasruddin Hoxha. This kind of person completely lacks any morality. Such a person says, the only law in the world is to eat and drink. There is nothing else. You should strive to be rich. You should strive to be powerful. Whoever hits you, you hit him too. Put him in prison. This is the philosophy of many people with empty heads. They can be found everywhere, and all of us suffer because of them. Sometimes we become overwhelmed by their thoughts. I'm not referring to any specific person. The only thing that can fix this life is if life were conditioned by reason. If I want to use today's lecture with the desire to make you adepts of my teaching, if I have the desire to make you followers of my teaching, it wouldn't be right. I have the desire to do the following. After thousands and millions of years, to have you say that this teaching is correct? Yes, because in this world, the only thing that is correct is the divine. All human beliefs have certain flaws. The human tongue is not flexible enough to express the divine. Sometimes the noun and the verb are not put in their places. And according to the rules of grammar, along with one of my lectures, they derive two opposites. They say, He speaks against the priests. I didn't speak against the priests. I speak against those crooked beliefs that bring misfortunes to people. I speak against those crooked beliefs that bring about wars. I speak against those crooked beliefs that bring about the cruelties in the world. Yes, this is what I speak against. Peter answered him, "Explain the parable to us." Do you know what we modern people resemble? In ancient times, there was a black magician who tasked himself with capturing the human soul as soon as it came out of the body, and he imprisoned it in some bottle. For his experiments, he chose Egyptians of noble birth. He made especially beautiful women out of some special substance, and when a woman was about to die, he immediately bound her soul in this new body and put an inscription, "Here is the soul of Princess so-and-so." He examined these souls every day. He imprisoned them, but could never make them work in these new bodies. He kept them imprisoned like this for thousands of years, but he couldn't make them work. Consequently, we modern people want to catch these souls. We can catch them, but we can't make them work. In life, work can only be done through the law of love. It can be done voluntarily, not by force. The ultimate delusion is that we want to make them work by force. Not only that, but we want to force the great law in the world to work. Work only comes from love. He who wants to learn to work must learn the law of love. If you acquire the intelligent life in the world, you have acquired love. But if you enter the unintelligent life, you will have suffering. I ask you, did you enter into these bodies freely or by force? If you transform your eyes, nose, and hair, you have entered voluntarily. But if no change occurs, this magician has forced you into his bottle. Consequently, the evil in the world stems from the fact that people are slaves to their passions. The passions are the magician who harnessed these souls. That's why you are frequently scatterbrained. Sometimes the wife is scatterbrained. She gets upset. And sometimes the husband is scatterbrained. You are serving this black magician in Egypt. Having already entered inside, did you ever consider asking the Lord? You never asked him. Do you know what I would liken the honesty of modern people to? A merchant met a young man who complained to him, "I got married, but I'm unhappy. My wife is tormenting me." The merchant took pity on him and brought him to his home. But a few years later, this young man dishonored the merchant's daughter and ran away. This is not the way to make the world right. We must understand ourselves. Evil increases evil. Goodness increases goodness. Love increases love. These are the laws that operate in the world. In love, you will expand and go up, but in the opposite side, you will go down. The only thing that can save you from this is the intelligent law. To know that love reigns everywhere in this world. Don't interpret this as your own kind of love. Don't interpret it as the love between husbands and wives. Don't even interpret it as the love between friends. Don't even interpret it as the love between brother and sister, because this love I am talking about is special. It exists in you too, but you don't dwell on it. When a holy thought passes through your mind, it is this love, but it soon disappears. Sometimes, when such a thought passes through someone's mind, he becomes a megalomaniac. He thinks he's a deity. Don't deceive yourselves. The deity has power. Where is your power? Someone says, "I'm a scholarly man." When someone says that he's a man of God, It means that he ought to possess unchanging love. If he doesn't have it, he is a black magician who can imprison your soul in some bottle. Don't be frightened. These old bottles must be destroyed. That's why death comes into the world, to destroy those bodies that have been turned into automatons. Death is a liberation of all those imprisoned souls. Consequently, when I say don't kill, I mean don't kill a soul that entered into a body and works according to the law of love. Never kill. But when a soul is trapped in a bottle and has become a slave or a slave girl, I say smash it. I therefore understand the matter on a fundamental level. A soul that works according to the law of love never even dare to destroy its dwelling place, because God will not forgive you, not in this world, nor the one after. If you succeed in freeing a soul from the bottle, you did something good. Hence, when a soul that works in the law of love dies, you should weep. And when a soul that is imprisoned in a bottle dies, you should rejoice. They cannot manifest their energy, which is why they will continue paying. The first souls are not destined to die, but sometimes they need to become a sacrifice so the world can be uplifted, so it can rise higher. Never dare to kill a person who loves you, who works for your well-being. To kill an ox that works in your field is a great crime. In the future, the law of the state will include the same law for the ox as for man. This must be the new moral standard, the new understanding, and those good souls in the world who are committed to working according to the law of love, they do not want to be kings. In the future, they'll be the best mothers, the best teachers, priests. They'll work selflessly. When they prevail, this world will be restored, and there will be no more of the understanding we have now. I tell you, apply this new teaching. Do not wait for Christ to come, because when he comes, he will destroy all the bottles, all the automatons, down to the last one. They will all burst. And the tombs of which they speak are those imprisoned souls who have been waiting for thousands of years for the coming of the resurrection. And now, in the Orthodox churches, there is a dispute whether they will be resurrected in this body or in another. I say, in no other body, but in the same one. And such a resurrected person will be guided only by his divine spirit, only by his divine soul, and according to the law of love. We will live in accordance with a great law. When the woman sees her husband, she will not say, "Give money," as she says today. And afterwards, when he gives the money, she says, "Hey, my dear, where have you been?" And the man will also refrain from seeking only money from his wife. And when she's rich, he says to her, "Hey, my dear, where have you been?" There are two bottles here, two people who are not free. You have to have the same attitude towards a person, regardless of whether he's present or absent. This is a true and proper Christian understanding. Nowadays, the people discuss and debate their faith and beliefs. Beliefs are created by man, and not man by beliefs. Everything that exists in the world right now came from man. Consequently, he need not pray, but transform everything. The human spirit is in the condition to transform all beliefs and systems. Consequently, you can also transform your lives. You can resurrect yourselves and understand the truth. You say, "Is this man correct in what he's saying or not?" I say, "What do you know? When the sun beams down on me, I don't ask, 'Can you beam down on me while I go to work?' Consequently, when I speak to you, don't say, 'This sun beamed down on us way too much,' but you should just go to work." I speak to all of you. Determine for yourselves whether you are free souls or not. Are you free citizens of the kingdom of God, or are you slaves? Do you follow a free religion, or some religion that was created centuries ago? Consequently, determine for yourselves which God you serve, the God of truth or the God of thorns. If I come to you and you rip me off with a certain quantity of money, I know which God you serve. If I come to you and say, "Friend, I'm tired, take me in," all right, but I'm not in the mood to do that. I then know the kind of God you serve. What matters to me is how you are going to act at a given moment when you come across an abused and grieving person. Otherwise, you might have the most correct beliefs. What's important is how you act at a given moment. The prophet Ezekiel says, "A good deed can wipe away all your sins." Both one and the other operate the same way. That is, one bad deed can wipe away your good life. Consequently, the person who has fallen shouldn't sit around and weep over his fall, but on the contrary, having fallen, he should try to get up. So the one who has fallen should try to get up. These two formulas are equally correct. Now, you must apply this great law. You will be able to comfort yourselves. Make use of it. We can never come into contact with the sun to shake hands with it, but we can use its light. You can never debate or reason with God. You can't go to Him, but you can always appeal to His Spirit. If you want to go to God, you will merge with Him. You'll forget everything and you will awaken to your divine life. And the Lord says, "Whoever wants to come to me must let go of everything." Are you ready? I'm not. Then go to the left-facing sun. And when you get tired, then come to me. The Lord has now dropped you. You've descended down to earth. Do you know where you'll be next time? The earth has traveled half its distance. There's still half as much left to travel. And when you reach that destination, the bell will start ringing. Then you will go from one train to another. You'll have luggage to carry. But where? Wherever the eyes see. Where will you go? You say, "The Lord is good." That's good, I'm glad. Do you hear the voice of Christ? Do you converse with Him? Or do you just presume you're doing this? Or are you doing what they do when they go looking to marry off a young man, saying he's very handsome with his nice mustache? They went to a young man. They engage him to a young woman, saying she looks very pretty. When she married, she asked to whom she should reveal herself. The young woman was very ugly, and her husband said, "You can reveal yourself to everyone, just don't show yourself to me." Now someone might tell you that Christ is such and such. You could possibly get married, but not to the Christ that you expect, but to someone else that you're not expecting. I don't bother. There are many Christs. There are many Virgin Marys. The world is filled with these. There is one true Virgin Mary. I know her. She's excellent. There is one Christ. There is one God. Do not deceive yourselves. Everything else in the world is merely a reflection. It's our own delusion. Consequently, your soul that God put into you is Christ. It's the Virgin Mary. It's God. Your soul is imprisoned. Can you free it? Sometimes when it groans, when it cries, you say, "I need money." It cries and says, "That's not enough. No, more, more." We need to refuse it. I'm not trying to say that you ought not have any riches, but I'm saying that there are real riches in the world, and it's in the present. To be rich means to be in the moment at hand, feeling rich when you eat and drink, and not thinking about tomorrow. There are some people who amaze me. Someone's friend comes whom the other person hasn't seen in years, and he doesn't feed him, but starts worrying how things will be tomorrow. No, if he comes to me, I won't kick him out. I will feed him and not worry about tomorrow. The great God will also not kick us out, but we make ourselves miserable with our unwise lives. You have everything: women, children, money, riches, kings, ministers, and you're still unsatisfied. Well, what do you want? Everyone is unsatisfied. Why? Because they're not rich right now. The person who is rich right now is also rich in the future. We must therefore turn things around and be rich right now. We should understand the truth right now. We should be satisfied right now. You say, "Wait, my mind is unable to grasp this." I see, this is how it is when you want money from someone. He scratches himself and says, "Let me think about it." You'll never think it out. But now I don't want anything from you. Something is making you dissatisfied, and you say to yourself, "That cunning man wants to put me and all my money into this, but I'll demand the highest interest." Try it out. You might have these doubts. You can have doubt when you're on earth. Both you and I can try each other out. Try this teaching, and that which you find correct in your mind and heart is the right one. That which is correct from within is also correct on the outside. If a person doesn't believe in himself, he also can't have faith in other people. If someone loves the Spirit, he will also love others. You will say, "What is the Spirit?" When you're drowning and someone saves you, that's the Spirit. What is love? When you go somewhere and they feed you there, wash your feet, and give you a soft place to sleep, this is love. This is the soul. Believe in the Spirit that pulled you out of the water. Believe in the soul that fed you. And so, explain the parable to us. Life is the parable. Our dissatisfaction is the parable. You must transform every dissatisfaction at a given moment into virtue. You're dissatisfied because you didn't study for your lesson. Study it. The young woman is dissatisfied because she's not beautiful. You must supply yourself with what you lack. You can be satisfied. Once you're satisfied, go and work among your brothers so you can show them how they too can be satisfied. And so, change your nose. It should extend by at least 1/100 millionth of a millimeter, and it should expand by the same amount. If you were able to do this, do you know what geniuses you would be? That would be an act of genius. This extension can occur both in the mind and in the heart. It can occur everywhere. A wise expansion and a wise extension of the nose. Only in this way will all the misunderstandings in the world disappear. And when you find this law, expanding the nose by 1/100 millionth part of a millimeter and extending the nose by this much, put these two proportions together and you'll find out what the whole is equal to. If the nose needs to extend by 1/100 millionth part of a millimeter, what is the task this nose is trying to complete? I will explain this law to you. If you take a bucket of water and spill it on the ground, you'll make a giant trail. But imagine that you spill it into a lake. What kind of transformation will it make in the lake itself? When I say 1/100 millionth part of a millimeter, I mean this law from within. A small transformation will always occur within you because that energy entered inside your body and it didn't spill outside your body. Doubt must be thrown out. Doubt is an affliction of the human mind, and hatred and envy are afflictions of the human heart. People who can't free their hearts from inner hatred make the existence of external hatred possible. They are slaves to this dark sorcerer. They are not free, and consequently, they are a plaything of life. Hence, you must also free your mind from afflictions. In the great center of your life, the water in your mind must be crystal clear. No impurities are allowed at all. Consequently, you will find out how big your lake is. So in this case, the divine energy that is coming now will extend your nose only by 1/100 millionth part of a millimeter. The issue concerning the overall volume of the entire human life in which we live right now can be solved in higher mathematics. I don't want you to say, these things are not for us, we are old people. Only the devil is old because he doesn't want to work for others. Every person who says he doesn't want to work, I say he's one of the brothers of darkness. Whoever works in the name of that great love, in the name of the great God, he's one of the brothers of the light. You say, we're stupid, we can't work. There are no stupid people among you. I find you wise. Cut off this thread that you're tied to. Someone says, how will we live now? Yes, brother, you ask this while you're in a bottle. Don't be afraid of anything. The love that is within you is a power. We all need to apply this divine thought. We need to help each other, not only individually. We need to encourage each other and say, we can all live according to this law and understand the parable, which is this, to extend our nose by this much and to expand it by the same amount. I say this formula. Your heart must be warm, your soul refreshing, the mind bright, and the spirit strong. The light that is coming gives freedom. When the spirit is strong, it can create everything and work. Say this, my heart is warm, my soul is refreshing, my mind is bright, my spirit is strong. Why? Because I live in the law of love, in which there is no betrayal at all. Say this, and the task is already solved. I will live according to this new rule. Now, do you know how much this new rule that I give you costs? It costs 25 billion. There are people who spent between 20 and 25 incarnations until they learn this formula. You will say, it's a very simple matter. We know these things. You never knew these things as they actually present themselves. Warm, refreshing, bright, and strong. Now, when you return to your homes, I want you to apply this rule. When the women apply it, the men's loads needs to become lighter. And when the men apply it, the women's loads need to become lighter. When the mothers apply it, the children's loads need to become lighter. And when the children apply it, the mother's loads need to become lighter. When the teachers apply it, the students' loads need to become lighter. And when the students apply it, the teachers' loads need to become lighter. A feeling of lightness needs to ensue, and we must all understand that you applied this rule. After this, I will ask many men and women, when you applied this rule, did you feel like your load lightened? No. Then you haven't applied it. Whoever doesn't apply the rule will pay 1% interest on these 25 billion. All right, I will reduce it. 1 to 1,000. Or should it be even less? 1 to 1,000,000. But there will be a fine. And so, we can say that we learned the rule correctly. But a fine will come. Lecture held on the 15th of May, 1921.